Hello and welcome to the 6-2 Notes. This is a video about parallelograms. And a parallelogram is a type of quadrilateral. So let's go ahead and come in here and let's kind of talk about what a parallelogram is. A parallelogram is a four-sided figure. So it's a quadrilateral. Okay, which means it has four sides, okay? A four-sided figure, its opposite sides are congruent and parallel, okay? And then we know that opposite angles are congruent. Okay, and then we also need to write down that the diagonals bisect each other. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just draw a generic picture of a parallelogram. So a parallelogram is something that looks like this. So I'm going to draw a line going like that, and then a line going up like that. And then remember that opposite sides have to be parallel and congruent. So I'm going to draw a line that goes out like this, and then a line that goes over like that. Okay, so something along those lines. All right. So what I want to do here is I'm going to name this A, B, C, and D. Okay, and I know that AD is going to be congruent to BC. Okay. I also know that AB is going to be congruent to CD, okay? And then we know that BC is parallel to AD, okay? And then I know that AB is parallel to CD, okay? So if we know something is a parallelogram, we automatically know all this information is true, okay? The other thing I will say is that we know that angle A is congruent to angle C, okay? And then we know that angle B is congruent to angle D, okay? All right, now let's take a look at our diagonals. If I draw in our diagonals, and that's connecting the opposite angles together, then I know that these angles bisect each other. So I know that these two segments are congruent, and I know that these two segments are congruent, okay? Now, the other thing I do need to note about parallelograms is this, and that's that consecutive angles are supplementary. So consecutive angles are supplementary. Supplementary. Okay. So we'll do a lot of activities in class and a lot of things that, allow us to, figure out what kind of figure this is, and we'll be able to answer a lot of questions purely based on the fact if we know that a figure is a parallelogram, okay? So let's go ahead and answer questions in 1, 2, and 3, and it says find the value of each variable. So here's what we've got. We've got this figure. We're going to go ahead and assume that this figure is a parallelogram. So if it is a parallelogram, the one thing I do know is that opposite sides are congruent. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to label this with a single tick mark, and that's a tick mark. Okay, I know that those two segments are congruent. I also know that these two segments are congruent, okay? And just because we're just being asked questions about the side lengths, that's all I'm going to say, okay? I don't need to put everything else in that we've already discussed, but I'm just going to use those two. So I am going to do this. I am going to say I do need to solve for A and I need to solve for B. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set up the equation and say that 2A is equal to 3A minus 5, okay? And I'm also going to set up the equation 2b minus 1 is equal to b plus 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just subtract 3a from both sides on this first one. So subtract 3a from both sides. And that's going to give us negative a is equal to negative 5. Okay, and if I'm going to solve this equation, I'm going to just divide everything by negative 1. And I get that a is equal to 5. Okay, so that's my value for a. All right. So then in the next one, let's go ahead and subtract b from both sides, just solving this equation for b. And so that's going to give me b minus 1 is equal to 3. So I want to add 1 to both sides. And then I get that b is equal to 4. Okay. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Okay, for something like that. So just using the properties that we know about parallelograms to help us answer questions. Okay. All right, number 2 tells us questions about the angle measures. Now, here's what I know. Okay, I know that opposite angles are congruent. So I'm going to write that real quick over here. I'm going to say that opposite angles are congruent. Okay. And I know that consecutive angles, consecutive, angles are supplementary. Okay. So since that's the case, I do want to say this. I'm going to say that this angle M here is congruent to angle K, all right? And then I also know that angle J here is congruent to angle L, okay? So because angle M is congruent to angle K is 44 degrees, then if I wanted to find what Y was, Y is just 44. So I'm going to come in here and just say that Y is equal to 44 degrees. Okay. Now, the other variable I need to solve for is x. Okay. And I know that that this angle here, angle J and angle K, add up to 180. They are supplementary. These are consecutive. Consecutive means that they're next to each other. Okay. So I'm going to set up this equation here. I'm going to say that x plus 44 is equal to 180. All right. And if I subtract 44 from both sides, then that's going to give me that x is equal to 100, what is that, 36? Yeah, 136 degrees, and that's it. Okay, and that's all we're doing. So, it's very similar to what we've been doing, guys. We just need to make sure that we are, applying what we've learned and applying the concepts up here, okay, to help us, okay? Now, I'm going to have you guys do number 3 on your own. Okay, number 3, you need to do on your own. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys do this on your own. On your own. Okay, but the one thing it is asking you to find x, it is asking you to find y. I will say this. I will say that the diagonals bisect each other. Okay, so I will come in here and I will note that this segment is congruent to that segment, and that this segment here is congruent to this segment here. Okay, so that I do know. Okay, go ahead and do that on your own. All right, let's take a look at number 4. Okay, number 4 says find the coordinates of the intersection of the diagonals of parallelogram HJKL with the given vertices. Okay, so let's go ahead and plot these points on the graph first. Okay, so point H is the point 1, 1. Okay, point J is the point 2, 3. Okay, point K is 6, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then L is 5, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in on this real quick and connect my dots. Okay, okay. 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 All right. And it wants us to find the coordinate of the midpoint. Well, before I do that, I'm going to do HJKL. So this is points H, J, K, and L. And so we want to find the coordinates of the intersection of the diagonals. So, here's what we know about the diagonals, folks. Okay, I'm going to go in here and actually just going to sketch those in. So we've got HK and we've got JL, okay? And so the diagonals are going to hit right about here, okay? We don't really know what that is. However, because this is a parallelogram, I know that my diagonals bisect each other, meaning they cut each other in half. So what I can do is I can just find the midpoint of either HK or JL, it doesn't matter, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do the midpoint of HK, okay? And so what I want to do is use my midpoint formula and then quickly review that. That's x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. All right, and so for HK, I'm going to call this x1, y1, call this x sub 2, y sub 2. Okay, so x1 plus x2, that's going to be 1 plus 6 divided by 2, okay, comma, 1 plus 3 divided by 2. All right, and so if I do 1 plus 6, that's going to give me 7. So I've got 7 halves, comma, 4 halves, and I can simplify this and write this as 7 halves, comma, 2. Okay, and that looks like that point. Okay, and 7 halves is what? Just 3.5. So 3.5, comma, 2. All right, and that's it. That's all we need to do. And that is that point. If you come over here and you look at that point, it looks like we're about at 3.5, comma, 2. All right, roughly speaking. Okay, so that's all I got, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Parallelograms are really pretty fun to do, but you do need to have this stuff memorized here. Okay, you do need to be able to redraw this picture every single time that you hear about a parallelogram. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it, and we will see you soon.